Welcome to the Heart of the Soul podcast. My name is Amana, and I'm your host. I am a wild earth mama living in the Pacific Northwest with my soul flame and our two earthside wildlings. I have lived most of my life afraid of speaking my truth, and although the fear remains, I am choosing the path of the brave and bold, and am sharing my voice with the world. Here you will find personal, heartfelt stories and insights from my unique lens, as well as conversations with other amazing women in my web of life who have incredible wisdom and stories to share. I truly believe that there is more that unites us than divides us. Birth and death are always a part of our human experience. Please join me in the creation of the Heart of the Soul community as together we breathe life back into storytelling and remember what it means to be wild, human, and alive. Today, I am honored to have Ashleigh here with me. She is my soul sister, cut from the same cloth. We have known each other for over a decade, and we live in different countries, see each other not enough, and yet we communicate nearly every day, send voice messages back and forth to each other. She has walked along with me through some amazingly beautiful times as well as some extremely challenging times. And she has been just an incredible, supportive person in my life that I there aren't even words to express the love and appreciation that I have for you and all that you bring to my life. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like I'm about to cry if I speak more. I love you. Yeah, would you like to say, actually, before we get on with it, I'm just going to preface this that we are recording this with babes napping. And so this conversation is going to be super free flow and might end abruptly and to be continued another day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, the feeling is more than mutual, my darling and my love. Yeah. And I think that it's so funny today as
Oh, yes, let's show.
Amana, we're both wearing these Be Love shirts. And I think that, I don't know, what is the stone in your necklace?
I have moonstone. Which one? What do you have?
I think this is amethyst. This is amethyst. So we're close because you gave me a moonstone also that I thought of wearing today, not remembering, of course, that we were doing this. But yes, it's just the most amazing thing when I first met Amana, that it was like just spoke to our souls were speaking. It was very few words that just automatically connected us. And of course, when we think about the ways that do connect us in one or another, the biggest was grief at the time. And we had just shared the experiences that we had. And it was just like an automatic magnet, like, you know, most people, when you go through grief, if they've been through anything similar, they might think that, or if they haven't been through something similar, they might think that each person is going to go through a similar process. But Amana was the first person that when we spoke, it was, you know, just honoring each individual experience and knowing that neither was better or worse in any way. It was just, you know, the age that we were 10, 11 years ago, so young, you know, in our early 20s, to think we had been challenged with these grief, you know, periods of our lives already at that age was just unheard of with a lot of people, of course, in our similar age group. So yeah, it was just love at first connection.
Yes. And the time of this recording is April something, 2021?
18, April 18. Yeah.
2021. Yeah. And we met in July of
2010.
2010. Yeah.
2010. And funny enough, the weekend that I met, there's Amana and I have all these synchronicities, and we could like connect the dots in so many of these synchronicities. But just that when I met Amana, My husband and I, we weren't married at the time, but we had a beautiful weekend meeting and having fun with Amana and some other friends at the time, and then came home, and we conceived, literally the same night we got home, we conceived our firstborn child, who, you know, turned 10 2 days ago. So how, you know, all of these things are like, you know, the beginning of our relationship was the beginning of new life for our life. And then how those synchronicities just kept going through all the new life and, you know, the lives that didn't survive. So yeah, all these, we just like, the universe just kind of bounced around all these, you know, positive moments and negative moments, or hard or difficult moments, I guess, as you could put it, more so that we would have things to look forward to after the ones that were challenged for us to overcome.
Yes, we've been
Yeah.
together through so much over this past decade. Would you like to tell people where you're from and a little bit about yourself so they have a little
Yeah.
frame of reference?
That's what's so funny. When we met, well, I grew up in Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada, and Amana and I met in Seattle, Washington, in the States, and that is where Amana grew up and where she was at the time, but not where she, I think you were living there.
Yeah.
But that's fairly close. Vancouver and Seattle was fairly close. So we used to see each other a lot at that time. And then over time, Amana moved a little bit further and a little bit further, and also so did I. So now we are in a place called Squamish. It is 45 minutes from Vancouver and 45 minutes from Whistler, basically. And we're in a mountain town with ocean and water and rivers, lakes, just the most beautiful spot. Of course, actually, I think that Amana knew it from the mutual friend, and how we met, because they were into mountain climbing. And of course, we're in like a mountain climbing mecca. So it is a beautiful place to be. And yeah, I've got
we can
3.
also pause. There's a pause option. So if you ever
Yeah,
if
because you
need to
can
pause
cut it.
from this conversation, we
cut
can. Yeah.
Sounds good. If I wasn't talking and you were talking, I would just mute it as well. But yes, I have 3 kids in Squamish with a husband that is a helicopter pilot, and I am a financial advisor, and that I have have had a lot of flexibility in my time, but of course it's always with a full family and a full being self-employed. It is full on, literally. But yeah, we wouldn't want to be in any other place, and we just keep talking about how good we feel with where we are. Yeah, it is wonderful.
Yes. So like Ashleigh said, we first like bonded over, well, first my name was Ashleigh at the time. So we had this Ashleigh and Ashleigh bond, which was awesome. And I still feel that, resonance as my birth name. And then like she spoke to, we bonded over separate deaths and grief experiences that continue on today, but were more potent at that time, these grief experiences that we had in our lives, and the way that we navigated those and supported each other with them throughout the years. And just having that sort of deep bond, I think sort of brought, depth is the only word I can think, but like brought depth to our relationship from the beginning and what we were open to speak about with each other. And that sort of continued on through the years.
And I think that not a lot of people, because you have to have that comfort, or maybe understanding that they are going to be compassionate to you, especially if it's already been several years since you have lost that person. You might not want to bring it up just to anybody. And so knowing that you have a safe space to speak about whatever it is that you went through, it just like, it's the most raw thing that you could speak about. It's the most like depth of I don't know, obviously birth is one thing, but death is to me one of the most deep things that anybody could speak about or deal with or handle. And then I've learned Lamana's been a teacher for me, being in, when we talk about life and death and being so close to that, and our astrology was like, cut from the same cloth, and how we are connected was also that we sit on this, I don't know, I want to say like on this timeline where we were so connected to both birth and death so closely that I maybe had feared things around death. And then by meeting Amana, it kind of opened me up to not fear death as much, and also for it to be more of a, this beautiful experience of a transition into another life. Yet just yesterday, I told my son, who was asking me about something happened where we were talking about my dad. My dad is the one who I lost. He asked me when he was on his birthday, he asked me if I was happy when he was born. And I started crying, and I'm like, oh, Sawyer. I showed him his birth video, and then he wanted to look at pictures of himself when he was a baby. And so we looked at old photos, and of course, old photos for 10 years ago had some people in our lives that are not in our lives anymore. One being my grandma. So he said, it makes me sad. I think about his great grandma Doris all the time. And I said, she's still here. You can still talk to her. And he said, he said something about, he connected it to astrology, even though we're talking about a lot of things, of course, to Sawyer. And he's like, this astrology stuff is just, you've got so into it. And I'm like, well, it's not astrology that it connects us to our spirit, like family members or the spirits we have lost. It's the universe, the universe, the divine. We can think it's in the stars. So how he was connecting it was so cute. So cute.
I love that.
Yeah,
I feel like because we both experienced these deaths earlier in our lives, like I know for me, that was a part of my, like, this broadening of the awareness of the spirit realm and of souls and of the inner knowing that my loved ones were living on in some sense, and that I was able to speak to them and communicate to them. And I feel like for you, that was maybe similar.
Well, the growth, if you think of actually just like thinking about this, how much you learn, right? So, I mean, every experience, you're going to learn things, but when you're young going through this, you're also developing your sense of who you are, who you want to be, how you want to be, what you believe in, what you don't want to believe in. All of these things are kind of created at the same time of going through these massive transitions in this grieving process. And being, not connected them in the physical plane anymore. But I think being younger and understanding, understanding maybe as much about that, but thinking, how can I connect with them in any way outside of the physical nature? And I don't think in our past generations, that was something that was just a forefront. Or I know my mom, because she didn't understand, how to help me when my dad passed, and was always just around. I felt like she was just around, and I'm like, it's okay. You don't need to know what to do. You can just be here. Yeah. But then I told her that it would be it's my own journey. It's not yours. So, I will seek whatever help that I need, and I will ask, or if you see that I'm struggling, sure, ask me.
Yeah. I didn't grow up in a family where like the spiritual realm was something that was spoken about or understood or, promoted to explore. So I remember also meeting you, and like I think you'd already seen a medium before that, and I never seen one. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is this whole other realm, and that you were open to that, and like tarot cards. And we started sort of exploring that together and talking about our experiences with tarot and pulling cards for each other.
Yeah.
And how that really, that was just like a learning and growth experience, like you're speaking to as well, to explore
absolutely
that side of life. And I love how you mentioned that, like maybe our parents' generation ago, or even and last however many generations, that in our culture, our cultures that we've grown up in haven't been connected to, death and dying and the spiritual realm. And yet, like all earth-based cultures and the history of the world,
yes,
do have this connection, but it's been lost.
Yes. And I think, of course, when you think about that, there's also different cultures for sure. And I think in the, this, of course, all these thoughts of like white, the white cult, like what is the culture in the white world that we live in that's just like blank? Like, honestly, it feels just there's a lot of blank parts that aren't connected. I mean, the one thing I could say is that my grandmother, my Grandma Doris, my mom's mom, had studied she had studied meditation with Maharishi and was part of, I call it it was maybe called, it was the Kabbalarian Society, but it was in the way that she explained it to us, you might have called it a cult. However, it was just a unique way of living, and that was also, they're trying to find a culture, like trying to create their own culture of how to live, what to believe in, all these things, what to believe in. And I think that maybe was one thing that helped with my mom understanding some of that from her mom, even though she might have not been as into meditation. It still was there and resonated somewhat in my household. So it wasn't something that I never heard of, or, and I know that I think with my mom, she had started to open up to me when my dad died, and the things that I was questioning and things that I was wondering about. That's the first time she shared with me that she had had a miscarriage. I was 17 at the time and she had never told me, but I mean, when you're 17, like what would have brought it up for her to tell me that? But to then understand that the losses in her life and how we are connected in some of those things and the losses that we have. So when one of the first things I remember after kind of my crying for months and months and months after losing my dad was that I wanted to talk to him or connect to him. And of course I think at the time Sylvia Browne was on TV. And so, there was this like interest. Okay, if she can do it, why? I'm always, and that's like the nature of who I am. I'll try. Sure. What can I lose? And like the first lady that I met actually was through my grandma. She introduced me to her medium, and it was like, of course that she has a medium. She's studied meditation her whole life. And it was just like, this older lady, but how long she had been doing that also, almost like a secret, in her like society or in her life. It's so interesting how, now a current client of mine is a medium and has a wait list that's 2 years long in order to serve people that are interested in having a medium. Like, how amazing is that? Yeah. And it's just, as I see here sitting, like affirmation cards, we have shared, around, actually above where I'm sitting, I have created, I guess you would call it maybe like an altar. It's a mountain wood piece that I got, and then it's got all of the things that I've treasured that Amana has given me. And it's like, it's in a pretty prominent place in my kitchen. And I did, just for my birthday, Amana put my name on a piece of paper with like words that made her think of me, and just art that she drew, and I've stuck it underneath the cards that she's given me that are the most beautiful cards that I have ever seen. It's interesting, at Christmas or birthdays when people give you stuff, I don't know that, I mean, not everybody does this, but not everybody thinks about the card that they give. And would someone keep this? Is it a piece of art that I would keep? And then there's a memory attached to that. And funny enough, I think when I met Amana, I had kept every card that had ever been given to me my whole life. until I was 21. And I had just moved into a new, like an apartment, the first apartment that I bought. And I had to really make a decision. Am I going to keep these? Because it has such a large amount of stuff to keep.
Yes.
And I didn't. But, I still keep some, and I keep the ones that, are treasured. There's just, I think, this connection in giving things, even it doesn't even matter what it is, but just gift giving is like a little receive of love. And Amana and I have never felt like, we have to. It's not a place that we have to do something for birthdays or Christmas. It's just if we feel like it or we want to, or we
have
see
the time and
something.
space with work and
Yeah.
life and kids.
Oh yeah. And COVID, that's like, oh, I don't want to stand in the post office lineup.
Yes, but I feel like we have also been really intentional in those gift giving, like you said, like not giving just because we have to or we should, but
Yes.
giving when we find things that we feel connection to and feel like each other would feel a connection to as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like it doesn't need to arrive on your birthday. It just, the intention can be set that, yes, I will be giving you something. It won't come on the day. I have no idea what day it will come, but it will come when it is ready to come, and it will be the right time.
Yes,
it's like
absolutely trusting in the
these
timing.
things.
And it speaks to like our relationship and the trusting and knowing that we have this deep connection, and that if we don't respond to each other for a few days or whatever, there's not like why aren't you responding to me and things like
Totally.
that we have so much
Well,
grace and understanding.
It's interesting also how the like non-communication, so voice memos are a thing that I think Amana and I tried to figure out how we could communicate to each other living in different countries, because we didn't necessarily, back then we may have not had cell, whatever you call it, like international calling on our cell phones, or that it was expensive, and internet was not as fast. And so Skype at the time was like hard, difficult, cut out or whatever. And to catch someone on the time that you actually have to be able to call them, or they will answer. I mean, it just gets less and less as time goes on. Busy lives, don't.
Especially when you had, Sawyer, like in that first year of us meeting and things like that with kids, it's hard to catch those moments.
Oh yeah.
And and I never voice memoed with anyone else before, but I love how I think you started it. I feel like you started.
And I don't even remember what app we used at the beginning, if it was
WhatsApp or not. I don't remember either, but
yeah, I don't think it was WhatsApp. I think it was probably something else. But I mean, there was like, I want to say Napster or something like MySpace, or like, I think it was, I have no idea, but there was all these things over time that we have shifted into one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, just figure it out and be able to communicate no matter what. And things have been frustrating sometimes. We have both recorded memos of like, we've lost time.
Yeah, like 10 minutes. And then it just like deletes.
More.
It's the worst.
Oh my gosh. We're like, we get so stressed out of like, I just told you everything that was happening for the last week. And now it's gone and I can't record it again. And but like, we've learned over the time, it's like, okay, fine. We needed to like express that anyway. We were frustrated about maybe one thing or another. Yeah, I do think that we've gotten maybe some more patience with, technology. Like there's all these learning things that have just come out of finding a way to communicate to someone. And I have, since we started our communicating, I was like a super big advocate for people maintaining relationships, no matter the distance or, whatever struggle that they felt was a way to communicate. I was like, hey, send a voice memo. You don't have them live on the phone. You don't have their response or their reaction. So, just, you can say whatever you need to say. And I mean, put it out there. I've hands down told, I feel like hundreds and hundreds of people to do voice memos, like clients, I mean, grandparents, like every single person, because it's, and I mean, we write notes so that we know what to say to respond. It's a way that I've been able to keep relationship with one of my best friends in Australia. and we live, I basically say we live on different planets because or different, it's completely different. Time zones are on the opposite side. It's just like so wild that we are able to maintain such a strong relationship with being on the opposite sides of the country, yet so connected in all of the ways, because we just find the time to make, a few minute memo to just connect.
Yes. And with the voice, you can you can hear the expression that the person has, and we can speak so much faster than we can type.
Yes.
And then I can listen instead of having to read. I can listen to it while I'm doing dishes or whatnot.
Making dinner.
Yes. Yes. And I too have attempted to, I have a few other people that I voice memo with regularly, but some people are intimidated by it and don't do it. And I was probably that person to begin with, in all honesty, because I have a hard time. But with you, I felt safe, and you have helped me to learn to express myself verbally more and not just type it out, to say the words out loud and to expand my throat chakra and my voice. And that has been such a blessing.
Yes, I know that early on, I have always been a very social person, and my mom was even more social than I was. And it's so funny for me to think that other people thought me as social because, when I remember being with my mom and her talking to people on the ferry or, walking in a mall, I'm like, Mom, be quiet, just leave them alone. But yet I am, even in my life today, if someone walks past me and doesn't say hi, I'm like, what's wrong with them? Why can't you just say hi? How's it, how's it going? Even if it's sure. And in the last year when people were like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, well, just one day at a time, but at least it's just feeling I don't know, there's these little connections with each person. And of course, a smile, everybody knows that a smile can just help. And I think just sharing as well what you feel, what you want to say, it, doesn't make you feel like there's anything unsaid. That's what I would say, in grief. And when people are passing, the biggest thing that they will say, Amana has been told these things. And I feel like you should share, because I remember there was some people. Oh, well, I remember this one, for some reason, I just remember being told that, that one of their wishes was that they maybe had have spoke to their son or their daughter or, their someone that they are now have no choice, no chance. And it's the relationship is gone. Actually, that brings me back to when I met my husband. He had, he has a mom and a dad, and he had not a great relationship with his dad. And that was, something that was difficult for me, because I'm like, hey, you have your dad alive. You have a choice here. You can have a relationship or you cannot. But why would you not try? Why would you, I don't have a choice. I don't get that choice anymore. And I swear I talked and talked and talked for a year. And he after a year, he cried and was like, I want a relationship with my dad. And I'm like, well, then next step is to just start speaking to him. And, it took a long time, but today, Grandpa lives super close now, comes to our house often, and he has a relationship with his son and now his grandkids, and, and his wife, which is our Nana as well. So the opportunities for people to shift any relationships that are, struggled. I know some people hold on such strong emotions for pain. I truly know that there's certain things. And again, in my life, when my dad passed away, I, kind of became a bit hard at the time with friends around me that I just had no time for shit. I'm like, if you don't understand or can't get me, or even be compassionate to me, I was like, I had no time for it. And that kind of made me a little bit hard, and maybe people thought I was a bitch, but I was like, it was the front I needed to put on
where
at the
you
time.
were at right then. You needed a certain set of boundaries to help
Yeah,
with your own healing and journey.
Totally. And I hadn't been, there was no trauma there with my dad. So of course I know that if there's, any, verbal, physical, or emotional trauma that happens in these relationships, it can be really hard to move past that. So I think, of course, it depends. Sure, it depends. But the biggest thing that I say, I think all the time, is you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know if someone feels differently than you do, or, all those things, like anything that you would ever think, you'd be like, you have no idea. You really have no idea how that, I think we are so quick to judge how someone else is going to feel or think or what they're going to say. And even today, I mean, it's honestly, something that I think all of us are challenged with. It's like, stop, just listen to your intuition. And, you can only do so much. Like, you can only do your best. And I have, seen so many people that are like, especially on social media, that have such negativity like come at them, and they always like are posting about all these negative people. And I'm like, I don't know if it's because I don't post enough, I'm not out there as much, or whatever it is, but I definitely asked the universe at some point to keep those people away. And I think that whole, connect, who you're going to be connected to, or who you're going to meet and build the connections with, are going to be the people that should be in your life. And that any people that are super, down on your vibe, they're not supposed to be. So I mean, I like feel like I'm going in a circle.
No, you're not. Yeah. And it can be hard to like disconnect from those people sometimes too. And it can be a cycle of staying in relationship with people that aren't bringing the things that you want for your life, which can then, like, I've done that before, stayed in relationships that were bringing me harm, bringing me things that were not good for me. And yet I stayed there until a certain point when I made a decision to step away. But it's not easy.
No, it's not. No, 100%. Yeah, it's interesting how I think, and in, in the history of these like 11 years, like the most amazing thing is that these memos as well, and these connections, and the way that we communicate, is that if there is no communication, like if there aren't any memos, it's a subconscious, like, that there's something going on as well. And it's like just this, like, okay, we learned Reiki. I think you first, and then I took some, or maybe I had a Reiki session, and then, but somehow we've like, connected all these dots around the same timing. And it was like, okay, well, we're just going to send each other Reiki, and, whatever we can do without the communication on this now voice memo scenario, we will do. And, it's just, yeah, it's like the most special relationship, of course, of I feel like my whole life. And
Yes,
it's totally different than your spouse. I mean, I can't, Amon and I speak about things that we don't speak to our husbands about, or speak about our husbands,
yes.
Or whatever we need to speak about.
Parenting and mothering, and it can be really helpful to have each other to speak about these things, some things that aren't spoken about often in our greater culture or friend groups, that we're able to speak openly about.
Yeah. And to be so receiving, I think, of all the things that we learn, and of each other's uniqueness, that and that has grown and changed over time, but not having any judgment one way or another, and just loving unconditionally for just the beautiful being that you are.
Absolutely, because we don't do all the things in all the same ways, and that would be boring, and we wouldn't want to. But
Yeah.
I love hearing the different things that you do, and some ways of doing things that I don't do, and some ways that I do, and others that I never heard of, that I'm like, ooh, I want to try that out. And
yeah,
it's been,
yes, as I think of like the last thing that I said, that I was like, let's do a movement challenge together.
yes.
And then, okay, you're like, okay, let's start today. And I'm like, I'm not ready today. And yet we still haven't done that yet. or like together. But then my neighbor gave me a Fitbit, and now it's tracking my steps, and I've like put movement goals in there, and it has gotten me moving more. It's funny how these little, like, I don't actually think I haven't shared this with you yet. I think she gave it to me on Tuesday, so it's like not long, but it has been a fun new interesting thing.
Yeah, motivating you to move more, you said.
Oh, motivated. Yeah. Well, there's like it tells you, you don't even have to put it in if you haven't moved for 30 minutes that day, and like whatever their fit, like, I guess it's your heart.
Whatever the algorithm is.
Yeah. Or your heart rate or something or other. They know how much you're working, or how much whatever you're doing is not moving enough. Funny enough, but vacuuming was part of those 30-minute, like they were in there in that 30 minutes. Yeah, no, it's an interesting, all the ways we just want to help each other out all the time, and like whatever struggles each other has, I just am like, oh, I wish that, I wish I could bring you food. I wish you could, all the things we can't do. But even like, this is just the funny thing that I thought was so neat, is that, when you wanted to make sourdough bread, and I'm making sourdough bread, and I can't, of course, like I could try to ship sourdough starter from my fridge, but who knows if that would work or not. I think we're like,
or if they would allow it across the border.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the hell is this goo that she's sending? But then, connected, I found or emailed some bakeries in Spokane so that I could find out if I could find a starter for you.
Yes.
And then I did. And I did.
Awesome.
It's like the things that you can do when you don't live in the same place. And yes, and when we moved further and further apart, and then, but yeah, making the time and space for each other, and supporting one another, like through anything that we could ever do. I mean, I will just 100% forever and always, and hope that one day when we're at some point in our lives, we can live next door to each other. Yeah.
Yes. And I know when we're really, struggling, I feel like we can have kind words to each other, or make like suggestions that might be possible or helpful. Like, well, have you taken a bath, or lit a candle, or pulled a tarot card, or, had a moment to yourself? And sometimes in motherhood can be so overwhelming, and like the perfect mother persona and myth that is there, that we're, this unattainable thing that we're striving to.
Yes.
And that can be really hard, and just reminding each other that it's, we're not perfect, and we're going to yell at our kids sometimes. And we do yell at our kids. Like, I yell at my children. Yeah. I don't like that. I wish that I didn't. I, work on my ways of communicating.
Yes. I mean, that's just all the things. We are not perfect. And, having kids at different ages, it's kind of that whole thing of like understanding it different. I mean, but each child is also different. I mean, for sure. But what I had maybe already done, and then I'm like, but this is, I mean, it was my first kid. I don't know any different. Like, I don't know what's better, what's not. And, having even just like this sugar, like the conversations about sugar, and how it's like, let's try, like almost like a challenge. Let's try and not have them have sugar. And having a third that now I feel so sad for her sugar intake. Oh, and yeah, I just wish that everybody had people like you and I have, or that can have someone that they can communicate with. And I don't think it, obviously it's the whole thing of, it doesn't need to be someone that is like a sister, or feels like, someone that you could basically be married to and
live with. Lives. Yep. Yeah. And it doesn't always have to be a professional. I think professionals have a really strong place in the world. And I've spoken to, mental health professionals, and they've helped me through things. And my relationship with you helps me through all the things.
100%. And I think that I have, several people that, of course, with around COVID are hardcore struggling, and they do not want to go to counselors. They feel like they're just going to bring up stuff that's from the past that might drag them a little bit further into their depression. And it's like, well, can you just connect, like send me memos, send someone memos. Like, honestly, if you're in a dark place, what do you got to lose if you're just going to send a memo? You have no idea when they're going to listen to it or whatnot. So you don't have to feel any pressure about what you're saying, that in the moment someone's going to feel one way or another. I mean, yeah. And it has, like, my one friend, she has starting to use memos. It is awesome. I'm like, yay. I mean, I had told her for years and years and years, but now she's like, okay, I get it. Like, she's often up in the middle, like in sleep, doesn't go to bed for a long time. So she has time in the night to record memo. Well, I'm sleeping. So no, we can't talk on the phone, but sure, send me memos. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. All these things.
Yes.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so good to see you.
You too. And these Be Loved shirts that, okay, so you gave me these are like the synchronicities. You gave me this shirt the weekend that you met Owen,
Yeah. Okay. I didn't even remember that. That
her
is.
husband,
Yes.
the weekend, like, we went to this, the fact that I was there.
The fact that, yes,
I was there. I live in a fucking different country. And at that point we were living even, like, we had been further apart. And so the fact that, we were there when Amana met her now husband is just like so wild. And yeah, these shirts, they started that experience there. And then, like, we went to, we've worn these shirts.
Pickathon. We wore them at
Pickathon.
Pickathon.
I
Yeah.
was talking about Pickathon last night, like that amazing festival, but it's just like the love and experience that was. And then I think we wore these when we went to, well, I know that we wore them in that picture that we have together at Hartley's celebration.
Yes.
I mean, there's just like all these times of us together in these shirts. And
yes. And the message, the Be Loved mantra.
The Be Loved,
like, oh, yes.
Oh, someone else said to me, like, wear your shirt the way you want to feel. Wear a shirt that says the way you want to feel. And I mean, how awesome to wear a shirt that we've worn now for, so how many years is that we've had this shirt for? 5 years.
Or 6.
6 years.
It was 2014.
7 years coming up.
It was, summer solstice of 2014 when I met Owen.
Holy moly. So 7 years. These shirts have lasted for 7 years. Yeah. And we're still rocking them. Hell yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. All these things. And then you find little verses that say be love, or you find little things that say love, and it's just like, yes, I'm going to send her that. That is the thing that I'm going to give her. Yeah.
Yes. I'm reflecting on how, voice memos can feel sort of raw and vulnerable. And sometimes maybe we have courage to record them anyway. Like, we haven't had that many conflicts or challenges in our relationship, but they have been there. And we've been able to, like, speak them out to each other and honor each other in the ways that we feel and find, a common ground within the differences.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's funny because I think with a lot of people might think of the bad things in their relationships more than some of the good, but I'm like, I don't remember any of, I can remember difficulties in communication at times when we were going through things. So, but it's just like honoring that experience for each other and being like, I'm just, and again, we both know each other is there. Just, we need to be ready for that, and to receive that love, and sometimes we're not. So,
yeah, I remember going through like Hartley's experience and going sort of silent for a while, and
yeah, that was hard. 100%. I was like, I want to be there. I wish I could do more. I wish I could, what can I do? And it was really struggle. I struggled for sure, not knowing, what's going on? What's going on in my life, and why and why and why and why? Like, there was for sure grieving. I mean, all around in lots of ways in those, in that time, there was like, it was a time of grieving in more ways than one. Yeah.
For people who are maybe thinking about starting to do voice messages with each other and have fears around that, what would you say to one of those women?
Well, I'd say that here's the thing is that now there's almost every app that has given the opportunity to do this. So you're not alone, essentially. If you have iPhone, there's iMessage, on Facebook Messenger, on now Instagram Messenger, there's WhatsApp, there's now Signal. That I was told that only drug dealers use Signal because it's so private. And, oh God, I was like, okay, well,
I'm not a drug dealer. Yeah.
Not a drug dealer. I just want to send voice memos. But the fact that all these, I think the first way we started was recording a memo on our phone and emailing it to each other. Actually, that's yes, what it was.
I have a bunch of them still saved.
I know. Yeah. I do too. And I think that's it. Like the fact that these exist that in so many avenues to be able to use them. A lot of people must be using them then and creating new apps or better security or whatever it is. Just know that if anybody's concerned about that and what they're putting out there, don't use Facebook, don't use Instagram or WhatsApp, use Signal as it's like private and confidential, and you don't have to worry about it going somewhere in the wrong hands. But then just do it. And I think what's funny is sometimes I listen to mine back because I'm like, also sometimes I forget what I've said. So if I like had to abruptly end, then I'm like, oh, where did I stop? Did I already say this? I don't want to repeat it again. But listening to yourself speak as well, I think is really interesting. And I think it's helpful and might build yourself courage to just keep speaking. And I know that, when I met our au pair that we were going to get, she was, 19 years old, and I sent her memos, and she was like, speaks Danish, doesn't speak English like that fluently, was super nervous about her speaking, and was super like, she's so young. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to say things right. I don't know if you're going to think I'm mad or sad or whatever. But that's how we like built our relationship up in the beginning, was just by memos. She was not comfortable with it, but because I started and I did it, it made her comfortable. So, I mean, I think that's just it. It's like, I think it's hard for some people to even have phone conversations because they don't want to. I mean, I know even my brother, I'm like, if I phone my one brother, I'll be on the phone with him forever. And I may not say that many things. He just will go on and on and on and on and on and on. And I'm like, this would be awesome in a voice memo because then I would know I don't have it. I'm not going to say anything and I don't have to worry about that or what I'm doing at the time if he calls me. And then I can send him a memo back and then I can know I'm being heard. I don't know. It's just a funny thing. I haven't got my brother in voice memos yet.
Yes, and you can record a memo and stop and not send it right away.
Yeah, absolutely. So well, and that's the whole thing. I think every phone has like a voice memo app that you can record memos right on your phone and you don't have to do anything with them, even if that's the thing that you want to do. Yeah, I mean, podcasts and how that has just like blown up. More people are talking, and I think that it's healing. I think that it's been a massive healing thing for so many people. And I think that the first thing you do is just do it. Send it to one of us.
Yeah, send me a voice memo. I heard someone on another podcast say that they have a link somewhere on their website that you can like send the podcast people. It's the free people one, raising free people, that you can send them a voice memo. I'm like, I need to figure out how to put that on my website because I would love for people to send me voice memos.
Yes, I think that it's, as the baby has just woken up, but that it's, you just need a phone number, and like you can create, I think, a phone number or yeah, you can create a phone number that you would just add to your link and say, send me a voice memo or a text or whatever.
Yeah.
And it could be through any, because you can do that like WhatsApp or Signal. You can send them to any phone number. The person just has to have that app. But I know WhatsApp is a huge thing on a lot of platforms.
Yes.
A lot of people have that added as well.
Well, I'm going to figure that out. And I guess today's conversation is going to be all about voice memos as your little one just woke up. And we will dig into, the births and deaths and other aspects of our soulful friendship on other episodes.
Yeah, that sounds good. I would love to, write out the synchronicities and how they like connect the dots in other ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so beautiful.
Thank you so much for capturing this time with me today.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
And I love you.
Yeah.